Wycliffe Conservation Property Complex is set amongst a dramatic backdrop. An area of spectacular beauty, the complex has a diversity of habitats, functions as an important regional wildlife connectivity corridor, and supports a number of species at risk. The complex is comprised of a patchwork of 23 parcels owned and managed by 3 conservation partners: the Nature Conservancy of Canada, the Nature Trust of British Columbia, and the BC Ministry of Forests, Lands, Natural Resource Operations, and Rural Development. Together, the partners have a conservation footprint of more than 1,100 hectares. I'm Chris Bossman with the Nature Trust of BC, and this short video describes the invasive plant management project the partners completed through the Kootenay Connect initiative. The Wycliffe area has a long and storied past. Prospecting, agriculture, timber harvest, and human settlement, combined with more contemporary land uses such as transportation and utility corridors and recreation, have left a legacy of invasive species, mostly plants, on the landscape. Next to habitat loss, invasive species are considered to pose the second greatest threat to biodiversity values for a whole host of reasons. Not surprisingly, the overarching management plan for the complex identified invasive species as a significant threat to conservation values, including species at risk. Through a procurement process, the partners contracted the East Kootenay Invasive Species Council to begin addressing many of the actions identified in the plan. The first step was to complete a more comprehensive inventory of invasive species with a focus on plants. Because of limited funds, EKISC and the partners used sensitive ecosystem inventory maps, range and grassland assessments, an understanding of vector and pathway spread, as well as land management staff knowledge of the complex to prioritize areas for inventory. Using EKISC's protocol for inventorying large landscapes, 539 hectares were assessed and results recorded in BC's Invasive Alien Plant Program database. The inventory informed a treatment strategy, which was implemented by longtime EKISC subcontractor Mountain View Resources. Chemical treatments using herbicide were prioritized on low and medium density species and those with the physiology to respond to autumn treatments. 9 different species were targeted throughout 60 infestation sites, representing a total treatment area of 8.5 hectares. All treatment data was recorded in the Invasive Alien Plant Program database. Post-treatment monitoring is essential, ideally 2 to 4 weeks later when herbicide damage is visible. EKISC staff monitored 8 sites, or 13% of treatments, exceeding the recommended threshold of 10%. All treatments scored well in both site completion and efficacy. The partners are committed to long-term effectiveness monitoring of chemical treatments. To assist with this, EKISC established 9 plots across the complex as a way to gauge control efforts over time. These plots will be assessed beginning in 2021. A final report was written to summarize all treatment and monitoring activities for the field season, including future recommendations. The final component of the project, and certainly the highlight, was the completion of an invasive species management plan for the complex, or an ISMP. At over 80 pages in length, this comprehensive document summarizes historic and new invasive plant infestations, identifies threats, summarizes management approaches, aligns goals of the plan to the overarching management plan for the complex, and provides guidance on expanding into inventory and monitoring for invasive species beyond plants. More importantly, it provides detailed management recommendations to the conservation partners over the life of the Kootenay Connect project, and then also projecting out to 10 years. Recommendations focus on prevention through education, industry education, and the use of best practices. And, of course, detailed treatment recommendations for chemical, mechanical, and other controls. The development of containment lines meant to keep invasive species out of proposed ecosystem enhancement and restoration project areas is a particularly helpful inclusion in the ISMP. Armed with this document, the conservation partners undoubtedly have a clear vision for moving forward with invasive species management on the Wycliffe Conservation Property Complex. While this has been a successful project, the partners are looking forward to increasing on-the-ground treatments in the coming year. Invasive species management on such a large scale requires some difficult decisions. Rarely are there resources available to treat all species or sites. It may sound obvious, but probably the biggest lesson the partners gain from this project is the importance of having a strong strategic plan from which to base management decisions well into the future. In all likelihood, invasive species have become so established on the Wycliffe Conservation Property Complex, they will forever be a part of the landscape. The future will be challenging. Invasive species continue to spread and establish locally. Increased recreational use of the conservation lands, climate change, and cumulative effects will add to the strain. But with a strong partnership, a solid strategic plan, adequate funding, expert contractors, and public cooperation, gains can be made. Degraded habitat will be restored, native plant communities will be protected, visitors to the complex will be more aware of the threats, and species at risk will persist in the face of invasives. The conservation partners are committed to doing this and are grateful to our partners and funders for helping us take an important step in doing so.